You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call, and today we have Henry Ferguson, and we're at the Mile High Fish and Hunt Expo, or is it Hunt and Fish?
I think it's Hunt and Fish.
Hunt and Fish Expo.
You're pretty close.
Yeah,
though.
close. And we've kind of known the same people for a long time.
We have.
A very long time.
Yeah.
And Henry, you are head of the Colorado Bowhunters Association.
I am, until they find somebody better, which I think is setting a really low threshold. But for some reason, they still haven't done it. So,
but beyond that, you've been killing animals for years with your bow.
I have, yeah.
Big animals.
It's my passion. I love bow hunting. I just love being outside. So
yeah, and I was just talking to guys yesterday. We were talking about arrow setups, bows, builds, which broadheads, weight of arrow, speed. So what's the Henry Ferguson? Because you buck a little bit of trends. You do things your way.
I have all the right answers for this, and I'm willing to share all my secrets with everybody so that they can come onto the right side.
Yeah.
I do have a non-traditional setup
philosophy
that absolutely has worked perfectly for me.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm gonna have that time where I'll probably cuss it, and well, actually, no, I've had that time. And that's kind of a funny story, but yeah, I shoot. I'm a single pin sight guy. I shoot mechanical heads. I shoot relatively light arrows. I've been called unethical in my arrow weight before, but
and the shooting distance, perhaps.
But the animals have never complained. Although my first elk I killed him with a 365 grain arrow. Dude, we didn't know any better back then.
Yeah.
And, it was an old gold tip 55-75 but I was shooting a fixed head on that one. But when I walked up to him with his last breath, he looked up and he said, "I can't believe you killed me with such a light arrow." And he died a dishonorable death.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible. So I bumped it up to 380 after that. And,
Yeah.
But now I'm well into the 400s, and I feel like I'm compromising everything I believe in. But
so how heavy is the current arrow?
So I shoot a 425 grain arrow. And honestly,
I think mine's the same.
Yeah, and
now I have one that's like that, and then I have the 525.
Sure.
425 and the 525. And honestly, I've been playing around with it, and the amount of people who got mad at me for the 425 grain, I was like, dude, I'm hunting coos deer anyway. But
oh my gosh,
I'm like, I'm just playing around.
I'd drop 50 grains off that to go hunt coos deer.
And I put a mega meat on the front of it.
There you go.
You're
going to cut that coos deer in half if you're not careful, Brian. You hit that thing in the shoulder, and it's going to take it completely out. So
it literally, there were people really concerned. So
I find that hilarious because I have dealt with those same people.
Hey, if you like our show and you want to support us, you can head over to Canvas Cutter. They sell these awesome bed rolls that we've been using for years. You can just throw these suckers out on the ground, camp in them. You see I got my sleeping bag inside. Can't recommend them enough. They also have duffel bags, some of the best you've seen, canvas duffel bags. They've got beanbag chairs as well. They call them the dirt bag. They got wall tents. Head on over there, use the code GRITTY. Check it out. Cannot recommend the bedrolls enough. Let's get back to the show.
Many times.
Well, and I have been on the, Valkrie front of center, heavy arrow, discussions a lot. And I do love the aspects of that, but I also like this long range, flat trajectory.
And even at short range, that flat trajectory does matter. So again, I said I shoot a single pin sight, but one of the advantages, if you have a moderately weighted arrow and you're shooting in that 280 to 300 foot per second range, if my sight's set at 40 yards and he steps out at 48, I'm going to hold 3 inches high. And I know on any animal I'm hunting, I'm still very comfortably within a hit window of where I need to be. So it's all about, I always look at life as a lot about balance and compromising things. But but truly I look at it as controlling the things that I can control. And so I want to know, and I know what trajectory looks like at 285 from years of shooting 3Ds. And so it's something I'm real comfortable with. And honestly, I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen the negative outcomes.
Yeah.
And I've shot enough that I think I would have
by now,
but I just haven't. So
one of my concerns was you talked about hunting in a heavy wind earlier. When we were talking about flying a little bit, that was one of my things about the front of center. I was at the Total Archery Challenge up on Snowbird years ago, and there were some crosswinds that were radical. And I'm shooting, and I just saw some serious wind drift. Yeah. And I had hunted with some people, mutual people we both know, and they were a really good archer. They are a really good archer. And, the wind compensation was sort of in it, like natural, like
it's almost an instinctive thing after enough years of doing it,
and 3D and all that, and so they just compensated with. I don't have that years of 3D and the crosswind, and when I put the Valkrie together with very little drag on the back, and I stopped having to correct for wind much at all. So
you hit something there, and I think you'd made two changes that added up to a significant improvement. And I do think that drag on the back is a big difference, because I see a lot of people who are still overveined in my opinion. Yeah. So, and truthfully, I shoot a lot, so I've got pretty good form. And that's taken me years and years to develop, which, by the way, I think the honkers are coming in. We should probably turn around and get ready to, ready to drop some geese. But yeah, it's something that I shoot a 4mm arrow. So I want to have, my goal truly is to have as little flying through the air as far as the size of the unit as possible, because that's less for the wind to affect it. So I shoot a pretty short vein, and I shoot a 4mm arrow.
What arrow is it?
I've been shooting the Easton 4mm for the last 2 years.
And the vein?
And I shot gold tip Pierces for like 8 years before that or so. But, and then for vanes, the last couple of years I've shot the, Q2I Griff X. They make a 1.8 that's really stiff. And so I'm shooting that in a 4-fletch, which honestly, I don't even know that I need a 4-fletch with the Grim Reapers, but it just gives me a little bit more peace of mind that that's going to correct for an imperfect shot. If and hey, when the adrenaline gets up there, my goal is 100% to make that shot that I've made in every practice rep throughout the year. But it doesn't always go perfectly like that. And
that Grim Reaper broadhead, Brand Barney, he's been using that for a while, and we talked a little bit about it. Tell me about that and why that head.
I'll tell you. So I've killed animals with several different heads. I mean, I've shot fixed heads for years. I shot them for a long time, and I lost a buck that I should not have lost with a fixed head, and I just could not get that out of my head. So I started kind of digging in, and I shot some schwackers, and I killed a couple bucks with schwackers, and honestly, it performed real well. But I just knew with that aluminum ferrule, I was just waiting for the disaster. I felt. And I know a lot of guys who've been super successful with them, and hey, Levi Morgan bought the company for a reason, you know, but the fact is, I felt like there was going to be something better out there for me. And what I really wanted to find was a great flying 3-blade head, because just basic geometry of it, looking at something that's going to cut a straight hole like a 2-blade, or something that's going in like that with 3 blades, your odds of cutting something vital are just exponentially better with that 3-blade. And so it kind of led me to Grim Reaper. And then, and I shot the Razor Tip for several years, which is a great head, has a screw-on tip to it, but the new Pro Series is just a beast.
Really?
I think it would change a lot of people's images of mechanical heads if they looked at it.
I've talked to a few people, including Barney and like Sam Davis and
And you know what? The funny thing is all three of us shoot basically the same head.
Yeah.
So they make heads anywhere from like an 1.125" cut up to a full 2-inch cut.
Yep.
But there's something about the geometry and the blade angle of that 1 3/8 Pro Series and the razor tip and all those. That 1 3/8 inch just puts a lot of blood on the ground. And I mean, it you know, their marketing slogan is, you know, watch them drop. But
yeah,
I went through a stretch where I watched 8 out of 10 muleys drop. And
yeah,
I'm like, it speaks volumes to me, you know, and that hard, experience is hard to overlook.
That's right. It's hard to argue with repeat success. These guys are using them too on elk and bigger animals. They're
buffalo.
Buffalo.
Sam shot is buffalo. Yeah.
They're not afraid.
Amazing.
They're not afraid at all to throw a mechanical on for those bigger game animals. I was talking to Bill from Iron Will earlier a couple days ago.
Heck yeah.
And he was here and he's like, you know, giving his case for his head.
Which is a phenomenal head.
Yeah. And I'm like, there's so many cool options.
Yeah.
I found lately though that, as I've been able to get better at archery, I'm pretty darn good. And when it comes down to just being honest,
those little tweaks. Yeah.
But the putting on a mechanical head and then getting like field tip performance and forgiveness, it's been really hard for me to go back to lately because the mechanical heads just aren't like your grandpa's anymore.
Oh,
they're
no. Yeah. I mean, I remember the first mechanical head I bought, which I bought at, you know, the world's premier sporting goods retailer, Walmart.
Right.
And it was made by OLLIN. And I mean, it was, you know, only the best, but I bought them for hunting antelope. And cause I'm sitting here thinking, man, I'm going to have to reach out and touch something.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought these heads and I shot one of them into a block target. I pulled it back out and it still had one of the 3 blades. I'm like, okay, I do believe we're going to have to go back to the drawing board here.
Yeah. And today,
and you know, now the build quality on it is just so much better now. And the cool thing about being a bow hunter right now is the equipment's never been better.
Yep.
I mean, you talked about Bill from Iron Will. That guy, he's a literal rocket scientist designing broadheads, and
the testing, the
testing
nerd
he's done is
level,
unreal. It's unbelievable. And
engineering is intense.
I got to shoot a couple targets with him and Marty last summer.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you ever want to meet two of the most opposite personalities in the world, hang out with Bill Vanderheiden and Party Marty.
Yeah.
but no, seriously. And his approach to everything, you know how they always say how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Well, the way Bill designs broadheads is the way Bill brushes his teeth.
Yeah.
That's the way Bill does everything. And it's really cool because as bow hunters, we all get to benefit from that knowledge, you know, because he's written an 8-page article for one of our CBA magazines on arrow building.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you want to dive down a rabbit hole, my gosh, it was a clinic in like arrow building 505, you know, starting at 101. But
it is just fun though, to have equipment to be able to pull up, just hold, shoot, and hit.
It's awesome.
And I have found over the years that there are certain bows and certain arrow builds and setups where I can't miss. And then I get a new bow and I got to do the thing. And my groups are huge and I can't get them to shrink. And it's like, I got to take the handle off. I got to change the hold weight. I got to change the fletchings. And I am the worst at, there are some setups where I just am amazing. And then there are setups that it takes me forever to try to figure out how to get him to shoot straight.
You know, and I've got a great relationship with some of the guys at Hoyt, and I've some really good friends there. And I've told them the last 2 new bow builds, hey, I don't need one, because I loved my RX5 Ultra. I mean, I flat out love that bow. And it basically came down to, okay, I'm sending it to you. What color do you want it to be in? And then I got the RX7 Ultra and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a half a pound lighter.
Yeah.
And it aims better and it's quieter. And then, you know, I mean,
I have the RX8 right now.
I hunted with the 7 for 2 years he called me last fall and he goes, all right, 8s are coming. What color
I
is
hate
it going to
switching.
be?
I hate switching.
And I'm a absolute creature of habit, and I feel I'm at my most dangerous on my second year hunting with a bow, because then I've really got that relationship with the bow built, and
I'm not the best archer, right? Like at all. And so, I mean, I shoot a controlled shot, spend a lot of time practicing that, doing it with Joel Turner. And then I can command shoot if I want to, or whatever you want to call it. And I can outshoot most of my peers. And if we go to a 3D, I'm going to do really well.
Yeah.
But you then give me a new bow, and I look like the worst shooter for like a month or two. It's so discouraging.
And the funny thing is, that RX-8, when that thing hit my door, I mean, I fell in love with that bow. It's amazing, and it's hard to think that there was a significant improvement over the RX-7, but if there was, it's the RX-8. I mean, it's an awesome bow.
For me, for some reason too, I have a lot of hold weight.
Yeah, I shoot them at 75, and then I'll usually end up screwing around with twisting cables and getting that as low as I can.
That's where I'm at too.
Yeah, and again, we talked about shooting in the wind, which, by the way, my absolute least favorite thing to do is shooting in the wind.
Yeah,
I hate it. I mean, I hate it.
That builds some bad habits quick too.
Oh, it does. And I'm a recovering target panic guy, so I had a bad case of target panic, but over the years, I came up with the process, and I've been able to beat that. But I still have images in my head of a big 4x5 buck, and a day that I should have just gone to work that day. The wind was blowing so hard, but I snuck up on this buck, and he stood up out of his bed at 45 yards, and I'm like, wheelhouse shot. I hit full draw. And that pin just got right on his shoulder, right behind his shoulder, and then boom, I was 3 feet behind his back.
Ooh.
When that gust hit. I'm like, okay, I got back on him. We're gonna get this shot. Boom, I'm 5 feet behind his back, and I just let down and watched that buck walk away. I'm like, I don't know if my broadhead or my knock's gonna hit that buck first. And
I did this.
It was just crazy winds.
I did the same thing on it was like a 50 mile an hour headwind, and so it wasn't a crosswind. And there were people with me, and right on my shoulder, and so you got an audience as well. And I had got to 40 yards, and anyway, I came to full draw, and I was holding it right on. But I mean, that wind was just pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah.
Finally, I got it really close, and I squeezed, and that shot broke. And I didn't really account for drag on that headwind that was so strong.
Well, it's hard to account for a headwind. It's just
I didn't aim higher or anything like that, and I probably just didn't have it in the right spot when the shot broke. But that arrow went right through the belly, and it slid it across, and then the whole innards just dropped to the ground.
I actually did that on an antelope once. It was kind of crazy.
It was the instant smell, because there was a headwind, so I smelled gut like in my nostrils, like I was
talk about feedback
right next to it, just boom, and it started running. It was stepping on itself, and it was just gruesome. And it jumped the fence, got itself caught in the fence, and then it drug it like 40 yards with its intestines on the fence. And Henry, it was
just a mess.
And then the coyotes surrounded him, and now he was on a piece of property I couldn't go on to, and we just sat there. It was a whole fiasco. And most of the time, nowadays I'm like, I don't take shots if I'm not like certain I would, in that situation. Yeah, I would be getting closer.
Well, you have to have, I mean, we owe it to the animals, obviously, but I mean, my whole, we talked about my setup and how it's a little bit non-traditional, but I build everything with a mindset of accuracy over everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my feeling is, if I have the time that I can execute my shot process, I feel supremely confident that I'm going to hit that animal in the ribs. And if I do, then I'm going to be a heck of a lot better off than somebody who hits it in the shoulder.
Yeah.
So that's where I build it to that. And hey, like I said, there's been that buck, and I let down on another buck that doesn't haunt me at all. but he was the biggest 3x4 I've ever seen. And same reason. I mean, that wind was just blowing me all over
I
the
think
place.
it's smart hunting with guys like Brian Lampers. I've seen him, even with a rifle, just pass on shots that every other dude would take.
Yeah.
And he's 300 yards. He's like, I want to get to 150.
Wow.
I want to get to 200. Like, and you're like, okay, and then almost every time it pays off. And he does. We have a video of him at full draw on this elk that comes straight at him, and he's at full draw, and that bull kind of stops in the opening, quartering to him, shoulders right, kind of, that's his angle. And he's at full draw. It's about 32 yards or something, and the bull's just standing there. 90% of the guys I know would have just shot. They would have tried to find
instinct.
A way to try to like figure that into the animal.
I can weasel the arrow right behind that shoulder.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And he just didn't. And the bull was looking right at him, but kind of threw him a little bit. But it's that unnerving look where you're like, most guys would be like, I better do it or it's over.
Yeah.
And then the bull like, I guess it's nothing. After it stared for a good minute. Okay. And then it just walked right up and he shot it at 6 feet, right in the chest. And
hey, it's not always going to work out that way.
No, but I keep seeing with him as he waits and waits and waits for like the best with the shot. He's like, I'll make this shot.
Yeah.
This shot will end better.
No question on this.
Yeah. And now that I've adopted that more, it's hard to explain it when it comes to archery because I'm just like, no, I probably won't make this shot. Like I'll go to full draw and I'm shaking too much and it's a little bit far. I'm like, don't do it if you're not certain you're going to make it. Wait a minute, get closer. And now, because I know my ability, it's like, don't force your skill set. Like it's what it is. Accept it and play within that. And usually it actually ends in success. In the past, I would have just shot and screwed it up and it would have run away and I'd have been, but I got my shot, Henry.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, you can go brag.
I didn't get an animal.
You got your shot, but your freezer's still
empty.
I
found myself doing that. It was like, you should have seen, I got this shot. It was like, everything was to get the shot and not, so you could like come back. It's just a feeling of accomplishment to be in bow range and get a shot.
Too, I think that's kind of the evolution of your skills as a hunter, and that's what I was going to say about Ryan. Is he can sit there and look at that shot and go, okay, I think I can probably make that shot, but he also is probably looking at and taking into account how frightened that bull is or how alert that bull is. Hey, I think he still looks a little curious. He might come a little closer and there's so many things that come with experience.
Yep.
And your decision making is one of the things that just
gets better and better.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We were hunting wolves up north on a frozen lake and we were just brushed in and there's a wolf out there at like 400 yards. He could easily make that shot. Setup, he's prone, he's rock solid, and I'm filming it, but he doesn't shoot. He gets to 300, stands there a while, doesn't shoot, comes across, gets to 200, doesn't shoot, comes to 100, doesn't shoot, comes to 18 yards, and he's like, Brian, I'm going to have to shoot.
Out of self-defense
and I'm like,
point.
well, duh. Like anybody else, I would not have some of the footage I capture.
You got an extra half hour of footage.
Yeah, the reason my footage can be so good on hunts is because
Ryan, of that patience.
It allows us to get so much more video of critters. And he's just doing it because, like you said, he's reading the animal's body language and he's like, we can get away with more. There's no need to hurry.
That's cool. And also once you've had a few successful hunts, if you don't fill this tag, it's not going to be the end of your world.
Yeah.
And you also have the confidence to understand that, if I put myself in this position today, there's a pretty good chance I can put myself in this position again by the end of the week, when I have to leave. The
confidence in himself and now in myself too, to be like, yeah, today's not the day, but I got 7 more.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll tell you, confidence is deadly in my opinion. I mean, that's one of those things that, but a new hunter can build confidence.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to come, and some of it you're kind of faking the funk a little bit, but I mean, to some extent, I mean, we talked about 3Ds, going out and shooting 3Ds, whether it's by yourself, with your friends or whatever, being able to come through when you've kind of built it up and maybe you and your buddy who always beats you every time you go out, you're having a great round. But if you don't keep it together these next 2 targets and make these next 2 shots great, then it's gonna, and you can go back. And I still remember in 2007, I'd just overcome target panic, and I'd killed a good buck in 2004. And I mean, a real nice buck. And, but I did that with an absolute wing and a prayer of a shot, man. I mean, it wasn't that it was far. It was that my pin, I know where my pin was on that shot. And it was about here with the animal's chest being up here. But I had just enough English on there and I smoked that thing. but I knew, and I used that very shot to convince myself that it was finally time to approach and take, man up and say, I'm done having target panic. I'm going to work through this. But so what I did is I worked really hard. I worked my butt off in my basement. I shot blank bale for 3 months. And when I finally got past this, I got out there 2007, a couple years later, and I had this great opportunity at a buck, and sun was setting behind me and I was coming down this hill. So the buck's looking up at me into the sun. So he sees something move, but he can't really see what it is. And so I'm at full draw and I'm aiming on that buck, and that pin is just floating in the kill zone. And I'm like, oh, just break. And it didn't. And so I literally let down on that buck. I let down, took a breath, drew back again. That pin sat there, shot broke, dead deer. And I mean, and I sat and as I asked myself, can I make this shot? Mm-hmm. I thought back to all the shots I'd made in practice through that year leading up to it and developing this new process. Yeah. And so so that took me as a relatively new hunter with a new shot process. But any new hunter could find themselves in that same place. You just have to convince yourself that you can do it. David
Brinker, when he's over at Sitka for a while, and he works with me a lot over here at Peaks, and we've been friends for a long time. But he had target panic, something fierce for a while, and he'd just mess up everything. I feel
his pain. Yeah, I wish I didn't, but I do.
And then we started hunting together, and he started smoking animals, and he used a hinge. And he just was like, hey, if it breaks, it breaks. If the shot breaks, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
That's it.
And I'm like, man, it's so restrictive, because if that deer walks out and you just need to punch the trigger, and he's like, I can't. That's not a thing I get to do. He's like,
I love it. I love to hear that, because that's somebody who has faced their demons and knows that, you know what, not every shot's going to be for them.
Yeah.
Hey, that buck I talked about, that 45-yard buck, soon as that big old 4x5, when it first sat right behind the shoulder, if I was the other personality type, I would have just hammered that.
Yeah.
Now, granted, about a half second after that, my pin was 3 feet behind it. So that arrow might have been just outside of my bow before that gust took it away. And who knows what would have happened at that point.
When I
might have gotten lucky and caught femoral.
But I watched Brinker over the years, and he started stacking up kills.
Yeah.
Big old rosies, some really axis when you just go there, and archery became a joy again.
And that's it.
And it was such a curse, and such a heartbreak for a while. And there's a lot of that, man, to be able to overcome target panic and to be able to have that discipline, and then to not let the demon back in. Because when you're talking about sitting there and you're like, you let down because it didn't break, most guys just give in, punch it.
Yeah.
And then they get the result.
Oh, trust me, that kid was sitting in the back of my head going, bro, that sight picture looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. But I knew that wasn't what I was there to accomplish. And so, and I still look back at that. I mean, here we are, almost 20 years later.
Right.
And I look at that shot in 2007 as just such a great accomplishment for me. And really it turned a page for me as a hunter. And it sounds so cheesy to say it, but I feel like as a person as well, because it showed that I could overcome my demons.
People
laugh. The only people who laugh at target panic and make that sound cheesy is the people haven't faced it yet.
Yeah, right.
And I do emphasize the word yet.
I agree. Like the guys who generally never experience it are guys who really don't shoot that much.
Yeah. And that's not me. I shoot a lot.
When you start to get nerd out and you shoot, that's when the target panic comes in almost to everyone.
Yeah. And
it's just something in your DNA that
it's inevitable
that comes. And that's why I shoot in a controlled shot. I never had it super bad, but you know, I was punching it right at the last possible second. Hey, if you like our show and you want to support us, head over to Peaks Equipment and check out what they have. Use the code GRITTY over there and you will save. They've got the trekking poles. Peaks has a teepee. They have gaiters. They have a headlamp. All premium products for the outdoorsman. Head over there. Use the code GRITTY. That's peaksequipment.com. Now let's get back to the show. There was no like controlled shot there. I was doing controlled until the last dump.
Right up until it wasn't.
Yeah. And to be able to then master it later. And then we went to TAC last year and I'm filming every shot. Every one of us is accountable.
And I'll tell you what, that is the best thing you can do for your own form is to look back at those and be hypercritical.
Yeah.
Look at it and
I'm like,
watch enough of them. You know what it's supposed to look like.
We have 24, 25 targets. And I'm like, if you wet the bed, the whole world's going to see it.
Yeah.
There's like 5 of us standing at the line. We're going to keep a score and you're going to see at the end of it how many times you wet the bed out of that day. So every time I stepped up, it's like, I didn't have anxiety though. I don't have anxiety anymore because it's weird now that I have a shot and it's a controlled shot. I just walk up and execute the shot. There's not this, I don't know what will happen thing. There's just like hold, stick, follow. If the wind's doing anything, let down for a second, pull back. It's just like I'm in control the whole time. Again, I can stop at any time.
That confidence and the process.
Yeah. And it's weird because I can just hold and execute my process and the arrow will end up where it's supposed to be. And even though my arrow, I feel like my pin floats a lot, probably more than most.
Yeah, everybody does.
But true. But I feel like my skill set is missing small. That's all I'm good at. Missing small.
Yeah.
Like I don't do 12 rings much. I'm not like this tight. But if there's a kill zone,
you're going to be
my arrow's in it all the time.
And that's at the end of the day, that's what matters. But you know, and again, I had a friend of mine that I was talking to in our booth yesterday, and he kind of whispered. I took him over to the Hoyt booth, which is right across from ours, and I had him shoot the new RX-8 and stuff. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And it is. And he goes, well, you know, I've dry fired my bow that I'm shooting now a couple times. And I said, do you have a shot process? And he goes, what is that? I said, okay, the answer is no.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, hey, I have a process. I have a shot process. And when things aren't going the way they should, I just go back and I start working on that process one element at a time. And by the end of, you know, I'll turn things around in a couple days rather than a couple months, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's having that process is everything. And like you said, you know, that's it again, it just, the process leads to confidence and it's an awesome thing.
What do you think about this? Because, I have found that, I shoot a lighter bow better than a heavier bow. And I shoot a heavy hold weight better than not. And if I can get those two things together, for some reason I hit. You increase the weight of the overall bow, the overall mass.
The mass weight. Yeah.
And I start to have trouble with tight groups.
Well, there's a balance there. And the funny thing is everybody's preferred balance on a bow is a little bit different. Mine, I'll have just a little bit more back weight. So if I hold that bow by the pivot right under the grip, it's going to tip back slowly. Just a little bit. And so that's where my bows tend to aim the best. And so most of what I do in building a bow is get it to aim right. So, and that's a combination for me of a couple things. Number one is going to be draw length. I want that draw length to be not close, but perfect. So, you know, again, keep going back to that RX8. I don't want to sound like an ad, but 1/4-inch draw length adjustments, huge.
See, I was talking to Jeremiah Plyer over at Wild Arrow because he does a lot of that stuff, and he was telling me, he's like, Brian, I think we need to work on that 1/4-inch on that RX8.
I'll tell you what.
He's like, it matters. And I'm like, does it really?
Oh, it does. So you talk, again, you said that you feel like you float more than most.
Yes.
When that draw length is not close, but it's perfect, you'll find that float decreases quickly.
Because my other bow it's longer and it sticks. And the RX8 is a little bit shorter and it's just floating.
Start bumping that draw length up 1/4-inch at a time, shoot it for a day or two, and then go another 1/4-inch.
The other thing was
see where you start getting the best results.
The other thing I wondered about was the grip, because it's a little more roundy.
It is more rounded than,
and I feel like I'm having a hard time left and right torquing with that grip.
Take it off.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah,
I'm taking it off.
Just take it off. And that's always, I mean, that's my next step too. I'm still trying to decide whether I like that grip or not.
Yeah.
Last year I made on my RX7. I mean, I sound like the home repair specialist here, but I took this moldable glue called Sugru.
Yeah.
And I literally took 10 packs of that.
Yeah.
I had like $100 grip from Amazon that I hand built, and it felt like an extension of my arm, and it was like perfection.
Yeah.
And truly that grip, again, just there's only two places you actually contact the bow. It's your grip and your anchor.
Mm-hmm.
So you want both of those to feel right.
I kind of wondered if
perfectly consistent, that's going to, and if you take that grip off, that's going to give you another 1/4-inch of draw length anyway.
Yeah, so that's what he said too. And he's like, and if we have to choke it up a little, we can.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's like, I think it's actually going to land just right. Because that's my thing. Remove the grip, increase the hold weight, which I've already done.
Yep.
And then toy a little bit with that draw length being just right.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 goals that I'm working on because it's brand new for me. I've had it like a month.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
I've had mine for almost 4 months, three months, but I mean, 3 or 4 months, something like that. But I'm still not totally there, because I had to swap out a string too. Did some stupid stuff.
Well, and then the back bar or not, or the quiver on the side, getting that balance, and I'm like, and the overall weight of the bow is a little heavier than what I was shooting in the past.
Okay.
And so I'm like, well, if I increase the whole weight, it doesn't feel so heavy anymore.
Yeah. So there's a balance, and you just touched on something really important there, because if you do have a higher holding weight, you tend to need just a little bit more mass weight to balance things out. Otherwise, you're all on the back end, and that front end just gets a little bit too light, and it kind of starts wanding around a little bit too much. But what I've started to do, and I started this like 5 years ago, I shot a bow I was shooting primes at the time, and I shot this bow at the shop, and it was like, oh my gosh, that is the bow for me. We're going to have a long, meaningful relationship. We're going to fill freezers. We're going to make my walls look better, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And then 3 months down the road of shooting this bow, I'm like, And so I'm like, no. What happened?
What happened?
What changed? So you know what I did? I took everything off the bow and I started over. So I had my sight and my rest on there, and then I added my quiver, and I'm like, okay, so now it doesn't feel quite as good. All right, so now I need to add some. I'm going to add the stabilizer. I added a stabilizer, no weight, and then I started adding an ounce at a time. An ounce at a time, and finally I found that bow did not like a lot of stabilizer weight.
Yeah.
And I had a back bar, I had a front bar, and I had them weighted down. And what I ended up with on that bow was a 15-inch front rod with 2 ounces on the front.
That's it.
And that bow aimed like a freaking champ.
Yeah, that's
and so that's what I've started doing now. Is I've started when I get a new bow, I'm just giving it. I'm starting it with nothing.
The aiming,
and then I start adding a little bit here, a little bit there, and then when I find that happy spot, I mark and I measure everything.
I know Jeremiah was like,
if something goes wrong, then you can find that and get back there quicker.
That's what he was saying. Let's work out all these kinks, and then when we get it dialed and it is rock solid, mark it all down.
Don't touch it. Yeah.
And on my last bow, we the limb cracked, and he's okay, so we got the new limb, and he's like talking to his guys. He's like, we wet the bed. Brian shoots this bow like the better than any bow he owns, and then we didn't mark down all the exact measurements. And he's like, now we're going to try to build it back up again. And you're like, but does it matter that much?
It does.
And it does.
It does matter. And the funny thing is, I had again, back when I beat Target Panic and when I beat Target Panic, I instantly went into a period of the best shooting of my life. I was mad at all my friends who didn't tell me to get over this faster.
Yeah.
But I went through this like decade-long period where honestly, I was supremely confident. And you mentioned earlier some long shots. Yeah, there were a few. Yeah. There were a few that, the wind calls were vitally important. But truthfully, that confidence was there. And I knew if I could hold my pin on it, I could hit it.
My longest kill shots have been 92, 93 yards.
Yeah.
And I've only taken those shots twice, and I made them both.
Yeah.
But I was real disciplined in taking those shots because I should just say I have lots of times I could take that shot.
Yeah.
I rarely ever take it.
Well, and it's usually not appropriate, but there are times where it is more appropriate.
I just knew I was going to make it.
Yes.
Because I had been shooting and the bow was just so forgiving and everything was just lining up.
Yeah.
And I was shooting that afternoon and I could not keep it out of the center at 90 yards. And I'm like, and so I step out. I told the guys, I'm like, dude, the way I'm shooting, I have passed on like 10 opportunities at 80 yards and beyond.
Yeah.
And I haven't got any closer. And I keep passing. And I'm like,
it's there.
But I know I'm drilling this thing.
Yeah.
I said, the first buck I see that is sub 95, I'm shooting. And they're like, oh, all right. And I stepped out 92 yards. I came back, poof, smoked it.
Yep.
And I'm like, but like 4 months later, I was out on the hunt, buck's there, and I'm like, I'm holding it, and it's like everywhere. Like, hey, you're not making it. I put it down,
shot's not happening.
I just didn't take that. But that's back to this thing where you can make it and know you can't, and then stick in that lane. And it doesn't always mean because my 92, that was a effective range for me 3 months ago that it's now an effective range today.
Yeah. Well, I've always got a target in my truck too. So, and I'm not backpack hunting all that much. I've done several, but I tend to be truck camped and, or I've got a base camp and I'll hunt out of there. But I've always got a target in my truck. And so a couple of the things that I try to do is I'll always have a practice head in my quiver.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I try to do, especially like if I'm getting ready to go out on a stalk, I'll try to mimic the shot that I think I'm getting ready to take.
Yeah.
And I'll try to take that shot just to eliminate any doubt in my mind that, any lingering doubt that I might not be able to do it. So I'll try to just replicate that shot as closely as I can, a long ways from the animal, obviously, but, and again, it just builds confidence, but I always, if I've got that target in my truck. So
the other thing
I'll always midday, like I'll throw it out there and I'll sit there and shoot some arrows at 100. And some days it's just like, bam,
right.
And your confidence is sky high and it's good.
I think that, one of the things that I've done over the years is shooting before I go out on that hunt. I'm at home and I'm shooting and I'm like, where's my effective range really with this setup? And if I can take 10 arrows and put them all in a, mule deer kill zone on like a Delta Mackenzie.
Yeah.
And I do that I kind of step back. And when I have 1 out of 10 that no longer is in that circle, I'm like, okay, I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
That's where I'm. So 85 yards, all 10 are there. I'm like, okay. Because I feel like when the adrenaline comes and it's the heat of the moment and all of that, if I were to stick 7 in there and 3 out, that's when things are perfect for me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I go, if it's 10 out of 10, then I can probably make that, even though the nerves are inevitably, as the further I go back, that's when I start to get 1 or 2 flyers.
Yep.
And that's where I'm like, okay, try not to take those shots, because if you're patient and you get in your effective range, now you really won't miss. And you're always in the game. If you don't miss, there's still a chance that they might get up, move your way. Like you're in the game still.
Yeah. Most mistakes aren't fatal, and that's something you learn with experience. You learn that, hey, even if I back out today, I've snuck in on deer and it just wasn't happening. I knew I'm at 200 yards. I only need to cut this distance.
Yep.
But you look at it and you're like, the wind's kind of swirling, and I've backed out of a lot of stocks, and I've got friends who are always giving me crap about, oh, you're too tentative on stocks. I'm like, maybe, but you know what? If you go in there and you're like,
if you hunt to the point of failure,
you'll find it more often than not. Yeah.
You live to fight another day. When they don't know, you back out and get them the next day.
And it's kind of funny, because I've found that when I am patient with those bucks, I hunted a big deer in 2010, and truthfully, a deer that I did not have any right to kill, and I didn't, as it turned out.
Oh, really?
It hangs on a buddy of mine named Tim's wall, and he shot it in rifle season, and I stalked that deer like 10 times in 2010, and I didn't deserve that deer. I was not a good enough hunter to cover that distance and to make it happen. And my stocks were chosen in this way. I see him. Let's go. So now I've learned, and I pray that I get another opportunity to deer like that someday, because I'm so much more disciplined now in the stocks that I'll take, and qualifying a stock and deciding if it's something that's worth
something to note,
if I have a chance or not.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Another thing to note is, you said 3D the other day, and I went to a lot of TAC events and to Ryan's Western Hunting Summit shoots and stuff, and filming shots. Last year, I discovered this situation where I already knew my fixed blades were just not flying like my field tips.
Yep.
Not even close. And I kept tuning, messing around with it. And then I felt like, well, if I execute a great shot, then the arrow flies really nice. But if I torque it or screw it up, there's no forgiveness in this fixed blade head.
Your misses are a lot bigger than they should be. Yeah.
So now my range is way shorter. And I'm like, but I've leveraged this ability to shoot effectively out to here. So I went back and forth quite a bit, decided I was doing mechanical, but I was filming these shots, and I had a pretty strong helical on there.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know this, but there were a few shots at the event that taught me some things that I wouldn't have taught if I was just shooting a flat target in the yard.
Yeah.
And I took this shot, and it's on the video, and I took the shot multiple times and filmed it and then looked at the video, and I didn't even see what was wrong with my naked eye, but at 120 frames per second slowed down, I could see.
There's a good teacher for you.
And straight downhill was kind of fine, and straight uphill was kind of fine, but there was this one shot where it wasn't flat. The target was like maybe 2/3 up this hill, and the arrow had to go like this and then arc just a little bit and then come right down to this. And it would hit this spot, and it was only like 75 yards and beyond it would do this, and it would just parachute and then sort of correct and then drop.
Yeah. Yeah. You've lost your momentum effectively on that shot. Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yep.
And
I know exactly
it was not that far at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, at that particular angle, at that distance, it was done. And the arrow would wobble in. And I'd still get a lot in there, but there was always a few
with
that
your naked eye, you will never see that.
No, I just thought I didn't have very good groups.
Yeah.
But then I was like, but when I'm flat at the same distance, whop, 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 it was going in fine. And so I was like, so that I guess that helical spinning, I don't know.
It does create a parachute effect out. And the funny thing is you usually won't see that until it's out past about 80 yards.
Yeah.
For most setups.
It was like 85 yards on that shot.
You start seeing that parachute really deploy.
Yeah.
You described it perfectly, because it just becomes, it's spinning so fast, and you want that arrow to spin. But in my opinion, you want that arrow to spin to correct it out of the bow.
Mm-hmm.
Then you just want that arrow to fly.
Yeah.
You want that thing.
Well, and I had a heavy FOC on there, over 22 or something, and 24. And I feel like I was still hitting it, because even though it parachuted, that tip just kind of stayed a little bit more on point.
It bailed you out a little bit.
It bailed me out a little bit, because you can watch it in the film and you're like, yeah, that tip is still trying to drop. But every now and then,
trying to track. Yeah.
Yeah. Every now and then, though, it would get off, and then it would just,
and then it's
fatal.
Totally it's
off
completely
track.
out. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and so for 3 months I had been shooting, and I was like, man, when I'm aiming right there, must something I'm doing, because I am not getting groups there like I do here. And
so what did you end up changing then?
So I ended up changing the fletchings. So it was just a 3-fletch offset.
Okay.
And then it was done. It was gone.
So the funny thing is, Brian, I fell into a little peer pressure last year.
Uh-huh.
My buddy Preston was shooting these real heavy helicals, and I thought, I used to shoot something like that really, really well.
Yeah.
But then after several months of shooting it, I realized I used to shoot shorter distances back then too.
Right.
So you didn't see that downside
I felt like with a Jaeger Valkrie broadhead on it, at 50 yards and in, it was kind of an asset.
That's perfection.
But it would really straighten out that fixed blade head pretty quick and give me some accuracy. But then as soon as I started trying to get some distance, it was a disaster.
You find that point of diminishing returns, literally, and then it starts becoming a negative.
And that helical
weird
with a field tip was decent, still in there at 85 and 90. I was still proud of my shooting.
The broadheads,
dude, the broadheads were just like
broadheads are like yoga pants, man. They tell no lies, dude. They are
done.
They expose
it was over.
Every flaw.
It was over. I was like, this is never going to work. This is really bad.
Yeah.
So then I also, Jeremiah was preparing for he drew a desert sheep tag in southern Utah.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I want to film that. So we filmed.
That's not a once in a lifetime hunt. That's a once in some lifetime.
Yeah.
Hunt.
Somebody else's, not mine.
Well, and I mean, not everybody's guaranteed that opportunity. So that's awesome.
So we filmed it, and Jeremiah was out there with super stiff, super light. I think it's a VAP, Victory arrow or something.
Uh-huh.
And it's like a 410 grain setup. Okay. And then he put that mega meat on the front.
Yeah.
He got a ram. He got I think might be the third biggest archery ram in the state.
Oh, that's awesome.
And but seeing what that mega meat did, I'm like, dude, what? It's like it's like a Japanese katana,
it's crazy. And I mean the wound channels from some of these, I mean, I had a friend that I hunt with who I'd shot a buck a couple days before, and we got back out with him, and he's like, man, I just want to get a good shot. I just want to get a shot at
this was a bad shot, but his
was
well,
I'm about to tell you about one too. But he caught a branch. We were in some oak brush, and he goes, man, I made the perfect shot. He goes, that arrow's tracking. All at the last second, it just hit a little oak brush branch. Deflected right back into the guts. But I'll say this, had he not been shooting a rage hypodermic, I don't know that deer was recovered.
That's what I think. If he had been shooting a different head.
We watched it run we watched it go about a half mile, and it bedded down, and we ended up having to get some access to a different property to get on there. So I mean, we were on public, but the deer wasn't when he died. But we were able to recover the deer, no lost meat or anything. But I'll tell you, it shows you, like I said, I plan for success, but you do have to have in the back of your mind what does happen if something
Absolutely.
deflects and something doesn't go right, you know?
That's where the arrow build I've got right now is so light, and the
What are you
fletching.
shooting? What are you shooting now?
It's that Victory. It was a newer arrow that came out.
Is it that Kevlar, or the Kevlar in it, or the stainless woven or something?
Jeremiah hooked us up. He just got them for us, and I don't remember their new arrow, and he was shocked at how stiff the spine was.
Oh, okay.
While being
that light.
Featherweight.
Yeah.
Featherweight.
I think that's a terrific combination.
He's like, you're getting
really do.
so much speed.
Yeah.
He's like, it's ridiculous. So
sure
that
enough, speed, and then you can build up that point weight a little bit.
So with
still balance out the speed.
So with a 70-pound RX8, I think I'm at 315.
Holy crap! I am seriously envious of that.
I don't shoot that. I have a short draw length and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm under 29 myself, but it's
I'm 28 and a half.
Yeah,
and he told me he's like Brian, these are newer, and they just kind of they give you that. He's like, most of the time you wouldn't be able to go this light because they're just not stiff enough.
Yeah, you're not going to get the spine you need.
Yeah, and then he threw the Mega Meat on, so I started playing around with those just for fun, and that's when half the audience is like, shame on you. And but I'm back to what you said about how accuracy is just really important.
Yeah, I think it's everything. I really do.
So I'm like out there and I'm shooting longer ranges, and even up close, it's so flat.
Yeah,
and it's shooting so clean, and there's really no drag on that broadhead. It's still, or on that fletching in the rear, and it's still flying. It's still got a lot of momentum way out there.
Yeah.
And so I was watching Chris B talk about shooting at the tack, and he's shooting to win the truck and some other stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you know what, like, one of the number one ways to be better archer at tack? It basically was shoot a super light arrow.
Shoot something fast.
Yeah. And I was like, I hate to hunt with that kind of setup. I don't want to really shoot that kind of setup.
But a lot of guys go to tack, and I'm on their tack. I'm on the tack Facebook page.
Yeah.
And if you want to drive yourself insane, go in there and read their arrow build questions, because I go out there I take my hunting bow to tack. I don't see any. There's no benefit to me personally,
like a target,
to taking a bow out there with a 30-inch front rod. And, shooting a glue in point. I'm going to go out there and shoot my friggin' hunting bow and have fun, find out what my limits are.
Yeah.
There's no better place to find it, because it will show you.
But I sat there and I thought about it, and I'm like, well, for years I've been shooting heavy.
Yeah.
But why not try? And it has its benefits for sure. But I was like, why not try speed, a little less weight, and then with the newer heads, I really do believe that I have plenty of power to push that mechanical, and the mechanicals are so. The blades are so thin, but just so razor sharp. That they're like butter. They don't need as much arrow to push through like they did back in the day.
Well, they're
too,
a lot
like
more efficient now. And and you used to. I mean, I remember I talked about those first ones I bought. I mean, man, those blades opened up and they were like 90 degrees to the shaft. I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder I left 2 out of 3 in a friggin' block target. You know? So but that blade angle makes them so much more efficient. And that's what we talked about that Grim Reaper 1 3/8. I mean, the reason I shoot that thing is that blade angle is just optimal for penetration. It just zips through more often than not. And that's what I'm looking for, It
is.
2 holes bleed better than 1.
Yeah.
You always want that whenever you can get it. But
well, it's been a fun challenge. All the archery stuff has just been, I used to do only archery. And then as I did more with Ryan Lampers, we did a lot more rifle hunting over the years. And then now lately I've been reconnecting and got quite a few archery hunts on the schedule each year. And it's just, I love it. I love it.
Can I tell you a secret, Brian?
Yeah.
I have had so much fun rifle hunting with my wife and son that
I know.
Hi, my name's Henry. I'm the chairman of the Colorado Bowhunters Association, and I want desperately to kill something with a rifle again. It is fun. And so I actually, I picked up a reissued cow tag a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, and I shot my first elk with a rifle at 48 years old. It was hilarious. I felt like some 12-step program that I was in or something, you know, but I felt it was an itch I needed to scratch. I had a blast with it. It was so much fun. I want to do it again.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm still going to try to bow hunt mule deer every single chance I get. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, but
some of the hunts,
but there's room for everything.
There really is. I mean, some of the places we go, I don't need the bow to make it hard. It's dead of winter. It's hard negative 10. It's a frozen river. I'm supposed to, you know, you're just trying to find one decent buck before you get frostbite. And we're 12 miles in some wilderness. So I find it that's a different challenge, which I love. Yeah. And I don't need the bow, but there are other areas where if I don't bring a bow, it's just silly a hunt with a rifle. It's a silly hunt with a rifle.
You know, some of them almost are. I mean, I've one animal that I really want to hunt with a rifle is an antelope. Partly because I feel like my spot and stock antelope hunts have led me to a place where
revenge.
I really, really, really need to get this out of my system. But and it's so funny. I've 2 years ago or year before last, I had an archery antelope tagged in an absolutely barren, desolate wasteland. I mean, really? A place where there were a few sage bushes, but not many, not enough to plant a stock behind. I can tell you that. And so, you know, it's a belly crawl hunt. And I mean, I have so much fun doing it, but I've had a lot of hunts where I've come home with empty tags, you know, but I've killed a few with my bow, but boy, I just feel that need to be able to lay out prone, dial a turret.
That's right.
Build up that backrest and just watch that vapor trail come at it, you know?
Yeah.
So, hey, I like them all, but I've had so much fun hunting with my wife and son with rifles over the last few years that it's kind of awakened something in me that I want to try that again.
We've definitely tried to make rifle hunting cool again, you know, among the adventure hunters and stuff. And,
no doubt.
But the bow is just year round. It's so, there's something about archery and just shooting that is so rewarding. And then to put an arrow, I shot 3 whitetails in Missouri this year with my bow, and one was on the ground, a couple from tree stands. But hey folks, if you are sleeping on the GOHUNT Insider membership, you're missing out. I used to be one of those guys. With the membership, you're gonna get access to the GOHUNT maps, you're gonna get access to their research tool and to a vast library of video content that'll help you find more tags, find better hunt areas. It's all in that one membership. It's $150 a year. When you use the code GRITTY, though, you save, and it helps us keep making this show. We do get paid every time you buy a membership, but also, I'll say this, I'd recommend it whether I was paid or not. So go check it out. It's the GOHUNT Insider membership. Good luck this season, and now let's get back to the show. It was just fun, you know, just to go out and shoot and make clean, good shots.
And there's nothing, I mean, one thing that gets overlooked in archery, and you just kind of touched on it, is it just brings me joy to make a good shot.
It does.
It just does. And I mean, I can have a day where everything's going wrong. I mean, work sucks, this sucks, everything sucks. And I can go out and shoot 10 perfectly executed shots and walk back to my truck and go, yeah, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
It's a good way to think about it too.
And I think the reason is it just requires that focus and discipline of bringing yourself back to a center and just doing it right. And that's what, and it just does.
It's therapeutic. There's something about it.
If you don't smile shooting a bow, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
So
what is the Colorado Bowhunters Association? Tell me more about that.
Sure. So, in 1969, which was 4 years before I was born.
That's a great year.
Yeah. That's, were you born then?
No, I was 74.
Okay, I was 73. So yeah, it was 3 years BH, you know. Mm-hmm. So but yeah, it's always been just run by a group of volunteers who are passionate about bow hunting.
Yep.
And more so than ever in the history of our state, bow hunting is under attack right now. I mean, there's right now a proposal to end OTC archery elk.
Yeah.
So for residents and non-residents alike. So, I mean, this is a major problem. And we have now, as we've always had, a group of tireless advocates who work for maintaining bow hunting privileges. And so like last Friday, we had a special commission meeting, and we have a commission that determines, hunting privileges and seasons and all kinds of management stuff within the state. And we had 3 people who went down and testified in person. And then I ran out in the hallway here
yeah,
where it was a little bit quieter and did my 2 minutes out there. But we're involved in a lot of things. And I mean, we have a liaison in Lane Walters who does just a tremendous job working with Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his area of specialty. He works with them. And we've got a few people who we're bringing on to kind of support that position a little better. We have Wes Mendez, who's our legislative liaison. So he's down at the Capitol all the time. He testified last week on 3 different gun control bills because we're Colorado and that's what's coming at us right now. But we work very actively in these things and, making sure that bow hunters' voices are heard and that we're not ignored. More importantly, we're not the biggest user group out there. That's always going to be the rifle hunters.
Yep.
We're not the most successful user group out there. That's also the rifle hunters. But you know what we have that the rifle hunters don't? We have us. We have an association of passionate people who will stand up and speak. I was at a meeting for a deer management herd, and they were talking about herd objectives and stuff. And this one guy stood up and he goes, I'll tell you what's wrong. Everybody kind of gets quiet and listens, and he goes, it's that damn Colorado Bowhunters Association. He goes, they've been out there yelling for years and lobbying for years to get these long seasons. And there were probably a dozen people in that room who knew who I was and knew my position, and I could feel a lot of eyes on me. And I'm sitting here thinking, do I stand up and rebut this? And then I sat and I stayed sitting down, and my best friend was sitting right next to me. He goes, you going to say something? I go, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
And he just paid us the highest compliment I've ever heard. Yeah. So what I did is I called our last 4 CPW liaisons, and I thanked every single one of them for being that guy that he hated so much, but that guy who had assured that we had those opportunities. And I walked out of that meeting bursting with pride.
Do people, is there a membership?
There is. So we have, and so that's kind of what all the work that we do. Okay. And then we're putting together a big youth and archery initiative this year called Spark. And we're going to be working very hard over the next few years to introduce archery and bow hunting to people who have not had that opportunity. Yeah. So whether it's inner city kids or just people from single income, single parent households, and which I'm a product of one of them myself. And archery saved my butt, man. And bow hunting gave me a purpose that I didn't have before. And so for membership, it's $40 a year, and we send out 6 full color magazines with updates from the CBA and what we're up to, updates from the Capitol, updates from Parks and Wildlife, and then some of the hunt stories. We feature photographers, so you'll have like big centerfold elk pictures and deer pictures, and but yeah, we're just I don't think there's a better organization to belong to.
That's cool. We just had Dan Gates on, and
love that guy.
You got
we just scratched his organization a fat check.
That's what
you bet we did, because we stand with him in a lot of things, and Wes Mendez does a lot of work with Dan.
I think it's really neat to see your associate, the Colorado's Bowhunter Association, along with the other groups here in Colorado, fighting to keep keep the hunting intact here, because California is kind of like the new possible, or Colorado's the new possible California, like in terms of
I'd love to
hunting
argue with
rights.
you.
Just
I'd love to
ripped
argue
away.
with you, Brian, but I cannot.
I mean, it's too beautiful of a state with too much sunshine for these people not to, with money and wealth, to move here with their weird ideas and then try to change it all.
You're exactly right. And unfortunately, that's our battle right now.
I mean, it's a metropolitan juggernaut here, so making the decision for wildlife, basically.
And you're exactly right. And one great way to look at it is if you flipped Colorado on its northern border and you just flipped it upside down, it's the same size as Wyoming. We're basically cookie cutters there.
Yep.
The difference between us and Wyoming is we have 10 times the population here.
Right.
10 times the human population. So
because Wyoming's cold and windy. That's why. And here
I'll
is
tell
beautiful
you what,
and sunny.
if they're not careful, they might grow by 2 more, because my wife and I are going to be empty nesters here pretty quick.
Yeah, I hear.
It's funny because as a young kid, I grew up in the Southwest, and I dreamt of moving to Colorado.
Yeah.
And I've been here since 94.
Yeah.
And I love it here, but I'll tell you, the political climate is getting real scary.
Well,
and
maybe, like talking to Dan, it's a possibility though that with enough of the hunting community coming together and participating in the Colorado Bowhunters Association and
all the other groups here in Colorado.
Colorado's responsible wildlife management. When you're in these groups and you're together and there is some funding, you got a little bit of a war chest, then it's possible that, because I really do believe that most of the public isn't crazy. They just aren't educated.
Yeah.
They're not informed.
I agree with you 100%. And that's why we wrote that check to Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management. We're a 501c7. We are not, we can't go out there and start politically advocating for things, on ballot measures and stuff. That's not our role. We get that. But we can choose to use and support organizations that are. He set himself up as a 501c4, which was a brilliant move on his part. And that's why we are supporting him. And
that's cool.
I truly believe that we have every reason to expect victory out of this, but it's only because everybody's come together. And it's not just sportsmen, it's manufacturers, it's big conglomerate groups, and SCI's donated, we've donated, I've donated personally, and everybody I know has donated personally. And that's the scary thing is we're a test market, Brian.
That's right.
Losing here is not an option.
That's how I feel too.
If we lose here, we will embolden the other side, and they will take this template and they will run this thing nationally, and hunting rights will be.
You've seen it in other countries.
Yes. And hunting rights will be very much in danger. But if the opposite is true as well, and we win, then we can also do the same. We can take that same template and that same cohesive team effort, and we can go out and we can win nationally. And our hunting heritage, my hunting heritage, I look down there, I can see over into our booth over there, I can see my 18-year-old son. That's my hunting heritage right there.
Yeah.
And it's my dad who came before me, who took me on my first hunt. And I look at that and that's why I got involved. I cannot stomach the idea that he would not be able to have the same privileges that we have had all our lives.
When, let's say there are a lot of guys who aren't from Colorado. How much of your membership is non-residents?
About 35%. Yeah, we have a pretty good national reach, and
but for the number of people who come here to hunt,
there you go.
Whether it's rifle or bow.
There you go. And I'll tell you, our numbers relative to the number of bow hunters in the state of Colorado, there's times where it really makes me mad because it makes me feel like we're not doing our job and getting our message out there. But, a lot of people just,
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know if it's ambivalence or it'll all sort itself
out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind, I think is it. But I'm starting to see less of that all the time because
a little red pilling, little waking up.
Yeah. I just don't think it's an option.
No more sleeping at the wheel.
Yeah, to be not informed and educated on what's happening right now and what could happen if we just turn our backs.
So if we're to make an ask to the listeners on the show, what is it? What is it that we'd like to see happen?
I'll
You'd
tell
like
you
to
what,
see happen?
I would love to see every bow hunter who hunts out of state join that state's bow hunting organization at a very minimum. So join your home state and join the state that you hunt in. If you live in Kansas and you hunt in Missouri, join them both. Mm-hmm. And hey, while you're at it, join Colorado Bow Hunter Association too. We're great. We'll send you some cool magazines.
I do think it matters right now to support, even though you never hunted here, just because Colorado is on the front lines right now.
We are. We very much
are. This is the test state.
And here's one of the cool things. We've seen a big spike in our membership numbers over the last 3 or 4 years. And it's not been an accident, Brian. I assure you, we have worked our butts off to accomplish that. But the reason we've done that and the reason it's so important is if we go in and we're talking to the legislature and Wes Mendez goes in there and he says, hey, I'm from the Colorado Bow Hunters Association. My name is Wes Mendez and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about such and such topic.
Yep.
And they say, well, who is the Colorado Bow Hunter Association? He said, well, we've been around since 1969. We represent nearly 5,000 members. Well, okay. Well, that has some impact.
Yeah.
But what if Wes could go in there and say, I'm from the Colorado Bow Hunter Association. We've been around since 1969 and we represent 50,000 bow hunters.
Right.
Wow. And you know what? We have 50,000 bow hunters who hunted Colorado last year just for elk. So
yeah, it's not that much, but
but that difference, it's not that much, that $40, but what that $40 means to us and what we can then do with that is immeasurable.
Yeah. One of the things we might consider, because I'm trying to help Dan out too, and his initiatives.
Absolutely.
And how would be to do some sort of, people want to help out. They just get busy.
Well,
but if you throw in like a little incentive, like, hey, guys, if you guys join this or that and become a member, you're entered to win this. I swear, man, it works. Like,
we've got a bucket over there right now that shows that it works.
Yeah, I'm that way.
We're giving away an African hunt this weekend.
Are you?
And we are. For anybody who joins, you get a name in the bucket. It's for 3 days only, and that bucket is just about full. And
well, stay in touch with me for those. It's just at the show, right?
It's just, in fact, it ends in 1 hour and 45 minutes. So
Dan's got
1 hour and 15 minutes.
Dan's got a thing going where they have a raffle.
Oh, they've got a Gunworks rifle. Yeah, they've got another hunt. I believe they have an African hunt as well. But, the big ask right now, again, Brian, with us being on the front lines, would be to donate to Coloradans for responsible wildlife management.
Yeah.
It's Save the Hunt Colorado, or savethehunt.org, if I'm not mistaken. But you can Google Save the Hunt Colorado, and that's going to come right up.
SaveTheHuntColorado.com.
There you go. And I am telling you right now, I can speak for Dan Gates. I've gotten to know him extremely well over the last few years. There's not a more honest man out there, and there's not a man who's working harder to save hunters' rights nationally than him. And then yesterday I joined Howl. Again. I re-upped there, and I mean, we've got to help those who are helping us. That's what it boils down to. And there's never going to be 100% participation. And I understand that. Trust me, I sat on the sidelines for a long time.
Oh, me too. It's like, why do I have to be 50 to be responsible?
I was in my 40s and my wife said, hey, I'm going to give you 2 options here.
Yeah.
She goes, stop complaining about the CBA or go join it and make some changes. And I'll tell you, I feel like we've made positive changes. And I mean, the membership numbers kind of bear it out, but it's been a lot of work. But wherever you are, whatever state you're in, there's somebody doing that work. Find them, support them, see how you can help them, because it just takes a couple more people showing up to those meetings to flip some of these decisions in our favor.
we're setting some goals this year on our own platform to try to help some of these organizations a little more. We have a big reach. We have a great audience, and we just, like everybody else, just get busy doing our own thing, and we kind of have that. Well, someone else is taking care of it, you know.
Yeah.
But they need our help.
But that someone else might be you.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You don't know it, but and I'll tell you, we appreciate having you sharing your platform with us to give that opportunity, because it does make a difference. It makes a huge difference.
I've been in the arena before, you know, fighting some public land and all that kind of stuff, and you get beat up, and sometimes you feel like, you know, you just feel a little discouraged, or you just want to take a break, you know. But we got some goals this year, and I'm serious. We should do a little. We have some partners who jump in and do a little membership drive for not just what Dan's up to, but the Colorado Bowhunters Association too. We have a. I mean, I used to live here.
Yeah,
I used to hunt here quite a bit, and
that's right.
It's such a great community, and so
that's how we met, through our common, or no, I'm not going to call Dwayne common. Our uncommon friend, Dwayne.
That's right. I mean, Dwayne is like family for us. 303 Trophy Husband.
Best Instagram handle in the world. Nobody will ever top that.
Yeah, he's here helping Phil at the show.
He is, and he is the epitome of the trophy husband. You picture trophy husband.
That's right.
And I mean, Dwayne's the first thing that pops in your mind.
When I first got here and I met Dwayne, we went to church together.
Yeah.
And he had a bow, and I'm like, "Come here, let's go see you shoot that bow."
Yeah,
dude, it was bad. It was just a point, shoot, hammer the trigger, and that man.
Are you indicating that he's changed?
Well, he is better.
Okay,
he's better. He's better. Like,
he is an absolutely awesome guy.
He's a good human being.
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure.
We need to do a few more things together, he and I, But thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks
Appreciate
for having
it.
me, Brian.
We'll stay in touch.
We've talked about this for like 3 years.
I know. Honestly, I was kind of sleeping on the podcast for a while. I'm still putting out some stuff, but this year, like I said, the goal, I wanted to get a lot more involved, a lot more educational content.
That's great.
Put on the platform. We're still working on films, but we're not releasing. I was so focused on film.
Yeah.
And just getting the next show out and the next show out. Trying to meet.
Well, there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And, you know,
but this year I've been, people are just going to be finding out, but I'm hoarding up all the footage so I can release it all in November and December.
Awesome.
So, they'll get the gritty films, but instead of piecemeal throughout the year, they'll just get them all in that 2.5 month window, because
that's cool.
It allows me then to focus, kind of work on the films in the windows that I have it, and still do things like this, which I think are important, and I've let slip over the years. So looking forward to more of this, but I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks,
and good luck this year. We're not getting any younger.
No.
And so
I'm not.
But you're a killer. Folks can find you personally on Instagram.
Yep.
Your handle is
at Big Chief Wackabuck.
Big Chief Wackabuck.
Yeah. So I'm 1/16 Cherokee, so it's all legit. Don't come at me.
Nice.
Yeah, from here down, 100% Cherokee.
From the knee down.
Yeah, from my right knee down, 100% Cherokee. But
that's legit.
No, it's if you take yourself real seriously, don't follow my page.
Yeah. It's a good follow. You guys should go check it out.
And
absolutely.
I just kind of show my adventures and my life and my hunts with my family and stuff. And
I really enjoyed
that's what I love. So
this archery discussion, I got so much to that I've been on my mind, you know, and I'm talking to somebody who has a very different approach than many. So I appreciate it. I really do. Thanks, brother.
Hey, thanks,
appreciate you,
Brian.
All right, folks. We'll catch you on the next episode.